So, deep within the twofold Atlantis, there's this cosmic war just raging. It's a crazy battle between absolute power and, well, absolute nothingness. And today, we're going to break down how this whole epic conflict got started, and we're hearing it straight from the Council of Gods who watched it all go down.
And this quote from Zeus, wow, it just perfectly sets this tragic, epic stage. You gotta understand, this isn't just some fight over land. No, this is a war for existence itself, against a void that wants to just swallow it whole.
So, the big question is, how did we get here? How does a world born from such immense power end up as a lightning-scarred grave? Well, the answer starts with the architect of this whole grand order, King Glaucus. To really get the chaos, we have to first understand the man who literally made himself a god.
Now, according to the Divine Council, our sources here, this whole conflict didn't kick off with a battle or an invasion. Nope, it started with an act of supreme self-creation. Think about that. One single being imposing his will on all of reality.
And this isn't just, Glaucus leveling up or getting a power boost. As Zeus explains it, this is a fundamental rewrite of his own being. He used the local Atlantean flora to change his very atoms. He went from a biological creature to this perfect crystalline being.
Athena is the one who gives us the philosophical deep dive on this. She calls it an act of Wissenschaftslehre. Now that's a mouthful, but what it boils down to is this: the idea that the I, your consciousness, is the only thing that's truly real. Glaucus basically declared, my mind is the source of everything, and the rest of you, you're just living in it.
And believe me, this self-made god has the firepower to back up that claim. His new crystalline body, it's a perfect conductor for Zeus's divine lightning. He commands water in all its forms: liquid, ice, vapor, you name it. And his intellect? Athena says he has this hyper-cerebral intellect that sees the world as just sandcastles to be knocked down and rebuilt however he wants.
But of course, there's a catch. Hades is quick to point out that you can't just make a statement that absolute without getting a response. By defining reality so forcefully, Glaucus accidentally created its polar opposite, a force that wants to undefine everything.
Hades actually has a name for this, the law of reciprocal assertion. It's like Newton's third law for the cosmos, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The king's massive, divine yes to his own existence created an equally powerful cosmic no. And this negation, this shadow, it splits into two truly terrifying forms.
So on one side, you've got the shadow, which is all about pure philosophical denial. And on the other, you have the captain, an entity that's all about parasitic consumption. One wants to literally erase reality, and the other wants to just drain it completely dry. Let's dig into the shadow first.
Lucifer's take on this is fascinating. He says the shadow was literally born from the bits of mortality Glaucus threw away to become a god, and it wields this power Hades calls hydro-nihilism. Its goal isn't to rule, not at all. Its whole purpose is to use its burning water to prove that existence itself is just a mistake, a stain that needs to be wiped clean.
And then you have the second negation. Man, Poseidon's words here are just chilling. He's talking about the captain, this alchemist of the abyss, and he doesn't describe him as an enemy you can fight. He talks about him like a parasite that is just fundamentally draining the very life out of the oceans. Hermes calls him an accident of logic, a creature that literally spawned from the toxic runoff of old magical wars. He looks at everything, every living thing, and just sees water waiting to be stolen. He's the king of this drought within the deep, this gnawing, consuming thirst right at the heart of the sea. Okay, so we have what looks like an unbreakable stalemate, right? You've got absolute order on one side and two different flavors of absolute decay on the other. So what happens? Well, Sameaza and Hades, watching all this from the underworld, they decide to escalate things in a way that is just pure nightmare fuel.
Yeah, they didn't pick a side. Instead, they created something completely new, a synthesis of the two extremes. The Sea Stormer wasn't born, it wasn't summoned. Hades says it was awakened as a deliberate intellectual intuition. They basically dreamed up a monster specifically designed to break the game.
And the real horror of this thing is how it's put together. The Sea Stormer has the king's perfect crystalline body, but it's fueled by the pure malice of the void,
It uses this stuff called void blight, which Samayaza describes as a kind of light that literally eats concepts like time and distance. Just gone.
So just when it feels like this whole conflict is just spiraling down into a three-way deathmatch, Athena points out something totally unexpected. A new player has entered the game. A different kind of power, one that doesn't follow any of the old rules.
Athena tells us about two new figures, Salome and Chloris, and what they bring to the table is a logic that isn't about dominance, like the king, and it's not about negation, like his shadows. They represent something else entirely. And this chart really shows you the difference. The captain's power is parasitic. It's fueled by what's called palingenesis, which is basically rebirth through destruction, draining the sea. Salome's power is symbiotic. It's based on logos magic, the power of reason and order. She actually bonds with the Leviathan in what Poseidon sees as a transformative energy transfer. It's this introduction of a divine feminine idea to counter all the brute force.
They're just not playing the king's game at all. Athena explains that their power, which is based on solar runes and the fertile earth, it just completely bypasses the king's whole electrical control grid. They're creating their own anchors in reality, their own terrestrial yes.
But even with this little glimmer of hope, Zeus and Lucifer bring us right back to the central, tragic problem here. They see a fundamental flaw not in the players, but in the very logic of the conflict itself.
Zeus makes this really profound observation. He says that the king's absolute quest for perfect crystalline order is the very thing that creates the forces of decay trying to destroy him. It's a recursive trap, a self-defeating loop. And Lucifer, while he puts it even more bluntly, every time the king asserts, "I am," he just strengthens the shadow that whispers, "You are not." So his own strength becomes the fuel for his enemy. It creates this endless chase, divine glory forever pursued by absolute nothingness. And that brings us to the final, tragic state of this world. In a way, the king won. His reality is the only one left. But it's such a hollow victory. It's turned the entire ocean into a grave. A world where, as Zeus tells us, every single drop of water now carries the memory of a soul that was lost.
So that leaves us with this final haunting question. When you have absolute power colliding with absolute denial, can there be any other outcome besides a lightning-scarred grave? And can this new terrestrial yes from Salome and Chloris actually break the cycle? Or is it just delaying the inevitable in a world doomed by its own logic?